My guest on the show today is Laura Johns. Laura is the founder and the CEO of Business Growers. And I was just telling Laura, I have to say, we are wrapping up season 4 of this podcast. This is episode around 200, Laura. I don't know if I haven't told you this before.
Oh, congratulations.
Thanks. It's been a cool ride. But one of the things I love about being a podcaster, I love a lot of things about it. But one of the things is you meet people you wouldn't meet otherwise. Like you and I would likely not meet because it's a big world. I'm up in New York, you're down south. And we start talking about getting to know each other for a minute and like, oh, how old are your kids? Laura's like, oh yeah, they're like 7 and 3. I'm like, me too. And then we like quickly bonded over having a 3-year-old boy in the house. So I just love that. I love that when you connect with people that like you never would have talked to. You're just like, oh wow, you have so much in common. So Laura, I'm so glad
little 3-year-old firecrackers. I will say, you can learn a lot.
Oh my gosh, yeah. People that are listening are like, yep. So Laura, we're going to talk about a whole bunch of different topics today. And first things first, where are you joining us from today? Where are you located?
I'm in Jackson, Mississippi, which is an interesting part of my story too, because we are a tech marketing agency, and you wouldn't think Jackson, Mississippi and tech, but it sure enough is where I'm from and where we've grown a tech business. So,
and you're from there originally?
Yeah. I'm from just south of Jackson, actually a very small town called Hazelhurst, Mississippi, but live in Jackson now. Yeah.
Excellent. Great. Well, we're gonna get to know you a little bit, and then we've got a number of fun topics we're gonna talk about that I know the audience is gonna love. The other thing I should mention is, Laura, you're also a podcaster.
I am a podcaster. I have 2 podcasts: the No Grow Scale podcast for entrepreneurs, and the Home and the Hustle podcast for working moms.
For working moms. That is the reason I have not listened to that. I'm not a working mom. I'm just gonna tell you right now.
You're definitely not our audience. I will say that we did an episode with our husbands that you might appreciate. So
I will definitely listen to that. It was complimenting the husbands the whole time on how amazing they are, right?
They were on it, so we certainly couldn't talk bad about them. So yes.
That's awesome. Well, Laura, let's get to know you a little bit. So what's something that you nerd out about that's outside of your business word? What do you nerd out about?
Oh man, is there really anything outside of business work when you're 2.5 years in? I don't know. I will say some things I love. Yeah, I know I will say that's kind of one of those things that's it's really easy to get lost in the work sometimes. So I have to focus on those things that are fun and playful for me. So I really love traveling, and actually I do mix a lot. I have a 7-year-old, as we just mentioned, who is got a huge map with his name on it and is very into geography and learning things. And oddly enough, World War II, which is an interesting caveat, but he is very interested in geography. So I do love to throw a little fun in anytime I have business travel and take him along with me. So very love to travel. Also love my Peloton. I feel like I have gone officially at 40. I have gone from working out because of some sort of physical effect that it has on my body to now it's just for my brain mostly, just to make sure that I can get some exercise in so that I feel like my best self and I come to work in a good mental place. And so the Peloton, they should put me on a commercial. I've really enjoyed that's been a game changer. I got it during COVID, and since then it's been a game changer for me.
Another thing we have in common, we got a Peloton during COVID because we lived in the city, New York City. And we'll put your Peloton tag in the show notes if anyone wants to compete.
Yes, I love it.
Yeah, there you go. I love it. Be like, hey, there's this person from Mississippi.
I was going to say, I'm mostly competitive with myself. I will say I'm one that hides the leaderboard because I'm never going to get to the top. So,
that says a lot about your personality.
Yeah.
So exactly. Laura, who's your favorite instructor, or do you have what's your genre you like to do on demand?
Mean, I will say, I probably shouldn't say this since I'm married, but I do love Adrian. He's a great strength instructor. I'll leave it at that. Yeah. He's really great.
Yeah. Oh. Yeah, let's be very clear. On-demand fitness instructors everywhere, but especially at Peloton, we all tune in solely because they really give us a good workout. You're
right. You're in New York. Have you ever been to the studio?
I have. Yeah, it's on 14th Street. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. I'm jealous. Well, Adrian is in New York, so he's in the studio. Not that I'm jealous that you live there. Kendall, obviously, she's really great on the bike. Love her. Love Allie Love as well. They're all great. Yeah. Love them all.
Yeah. So. I love that you're like, they're just really good fitness instructors. That's all we're going to leave it at. I'm going to leave it at that. Yeah, there's great fitness instructors. Excellent. So let's talk now about comfort zones, something that as an entrepreneur, And you said you've been at this 2.5 years. Comfort zone is always something as entrepreneurs, we're stretching and growing. Let's talk first about, and please tell us about something that is inside of your comfort zone that you know is outside of somebody else's comfort zone.
I really like public speaking. I love podcasting. I love being on stage. Like, get me on a stage. I'm not scared. I can talk about anything. And I'm a part of a group of agency owners that always say stage time is money time. If you can get on stage,
totally,
you can make money. And it just happens to be one of those things that I could get up and you could, throw me a topic right at, 5 minutes in advance and I'd be fine to go. So, and I really do enjoy it. So that's something that's really, something that I like to do. So I really am entering a phase or wanting to enter a phase of the business where I'm doing more of that. I'm doing more training and teaching of my team rather than doing a lot of the, head down work. So that's where we're headed in 2024.
I love it. Yeah. I think you and I are like doppelgangers from very different parts. I'm the exact same way. I used to do, I don't do it anymore, but I used to do personal branding work. And we would say the best way to grow your business hands down is to speak.
Yeah.
Because people get an experience. They get an experience of you, your vibe, the likely people.
It just builds trust. It's just a trust thing, I think.
Yeah. It's like, it's way more powerful than a book because we know that a book is arguably 2 years of work and lots of edits.
Right.
We know when you're speaking, they're like, oh, this is actually Laura in real time. This is her vibe. This is what she looks like. This is likely what it's like to interact with her as a business owner. Love that.
Right.
So now flip that. What's something that's outside of your comfort zone that you know is inside of somebody else's?
Details.
Okay, you and I are like the same person. No, seriously.
Is that fair to say? And I will say that's actually like, okay, so kind of, here's a great example. And this is not details, but this is just like when you when you surround yourself with people that are good at something, I don't know if this is everybody, but I simultaneously become bad at that thing. So when I got married 10 years ago to my husband, he's really good at turning things off, like my curling iron, the lights, locking the doors, all of those things. I'm learning, actually, I have not been diagnosed because I don't think doctors do this anymore. But my husband is like, if you are not ADHD, I don't know who is. Like, I don't close. He's like, you have never closed a cabinet door since we've been married. I don't close. I'll go outside and walk in and leave the door open. Like, this is just me. This is who I am. I think I personally like Laura, to think it's like I'm always moving on to the next thing is what I like to
Laura,
say.
My response to that would be, honey, this is the same as when we dated. Why did you think that would change when we get married?
Right.
Yeah, this is not going to change.
I will say, I don't know if that's the case. I just have a lot more things in my brain and I think I just can't, I'm always moving on to the next thing. So with my husband being really great at turning things off, I now just don't do it. So I never have to worry about closing the garage door. I never have to worry about locking anything because I know that he's going to do it. So same thing in my business. I used to be, chief marketing officer at a technology company. Yeah. When I did that, I didn't have a big team. So I really had to kind of own everything and own the details of everything. I will say, even in my first job, I remember my first review, my boss pointed out to me that I'm not really great at, closing the loop, finishing the task, which is a very important skill set. So now as CEO, with all of those things in my brain and a team around me that can actually help me close the loop on things, I pretty much have, had to build an environment where I'm like, if you expect me to do anything, like finish something for you, go through Ariana, make sure it's in ClickUp, which is our project management tool, and because she can make sure it gets done. But I'm losing my ability to be responsible for any level of detail.
Yeah, I love it. Have you ever taken DISC? Yeah, it's work style assessment.
We do the Strengths Finder, the Gallup Strengths Finder, but I have taken the DISC, but I can't tell you if I remember what mine was. But if we're the same, then it's probably close to yours.
Yeah. Let me. So I coach on Clifton Strengths. I'm a Clifton Strengths coach. Let me take a wild guess. You're not high in discipline or focus.
No.
Yeah, you're probably a relationship building and influence are probably your top things.
I think.
Yeah, communication. Woo. Yeah, you and I are like the same person.
Yeah, woo's on there. Yeah. Yep.
Mm-hmm. My execution themes, they break them into. There's 4 categories. My execution themes are all like in the bottom third.
Exactly.
I'm like, that makes sense. It's good that I spend most of my time talking to people.
I've learned quickly to not hire anyone without seeing that first, because what you think they're going to be good at and what their job description says, that will tell you a lot about them.
Yeah. Oh, amazing. Yeah, well, you and I are very similar. Well, it makes sense. I'm an entrepreneur as well. My wife is actually very similar to me. She works at a big company, but she's in sales, which is also at the end of the day very entrepreneurial. Which creates a bit of a interesting
I was going to
marriage
say,
dynamic.
how does that work? Because we're polar opposites. My husband's introvert. He's not like me, so he turns things off.
Your husband's a musician, and your husband's a musician, right? Which music is all about. Let it breathe, and like we don't need to constantly. How does it work for us?
He's a processor.
Yeah, here's what I'd say to that answer, Laura. How does it work? Mildly well.
Yeah,
we can't. We know that
practice. Lots of practice.
Yep. We know that we probably can't ever go into business together. We're just too similar. We actually see eye to eye on things, but then we both want to do the things too because we're very like type A. Yes. We're both like high drivers. I'm a high ID on disc. She's like a high DI. We're very similar.
Yeah.
So we like to support each other in our careers without actually being in the careers together. Like a good friend of mine and podcast guest from a couple of years ago, Robert and Kaylee, they run a coaching business together, and I'm like, nope.
Yeah, no,
we're not doing that. No, we're not doing that.
Yeah, I will say we are so different that it would work. He actually did when we first started, was in the business for a little while, but then like the home part and needing somebody at home more was like critical at that part in the business. And I knew that it couldn't be me if I was going to continue. So he does now, which to me, this is one of the things like people don't talk about, but we're in the deep South. It's very common for women to be at home. I know it's common more than just the deep South, but very common. And also, not very common for dad to do pickup every day. That's very unusual here, particularly in Mississippi. So I feel very blessed that I've got, a husband that has no pride when it comes to the pickup and loves to support. And he's doing it for our whole family, but we've got two little boys that love their dad so much. He's very present, which has been critical for this season of our lives.
Yeah, that's awesome. And you and I mentioned we're going to talk more about that a little bit later because that is a really, really cool topic. So we're going to get into that after we go to commercial break. But before we go to a break, here's my last question to get to know you. If I gave you 5 minutes and you got to speak to us on anything at all, 5 minutes, and this is the world gets to hear Laura's message to us. What are you going to talk to us about, and what's going to be your call to action?
I would probably talk about finding joy and balance in both working and being a mom. And I'm hoping that my audience is mostly, or is moms and dads that can appreciate the pressure that women put on themselves. And my call to action would be, I don't know if this is a good one, but, stop today putting the same pressure on yourself that you had before you had children and were a working mom. That was, and honestly, that came straight from my therapist, so I can't really take that as the owner of that. But I can't. It was a big opening for me, which we can talk about more too. But definitely. But don't leave the room with the same set of expectations and pressure that you put on yourself before you were working and trying to keep those things, in the same priority on the same priority list now. So that would be it. That's a beautiful answer. And one of the things that I love about that answer is you actually do talk about that in your podcast. I do. Yeah, I do. So you actually get to talk about it. I will say this. Yeah. I've been asking this question to most of my guests for 4 years. Every now and again, somebody's answer is the thing for their business. And I say, is that, I don't say this. I'm like, really? And it's like, I want to talk about how digital marketers can be more. And I said, I don't believe you. I don't say that on the podcast. And was like, yeah. I mean, I love what we get to do. Right. Yeah, I love what we get to do for our clients. It's amazing, but it is a vessel to get me to a place where I can have a greater impact. And I do believe that a lot of that is through like empowering women and working moms. That's a big passion for me. Love it. That's awesome. All right, Laura, we're going to take a brief commercial break. When we come back, we're going to get into some of the other topics I've been teasing out. So here we go. The Talking to Cool People podcast is brought to you by Jason Frizzell Coaching. Jason works with amazing people who are looking to find and develop their passion and purpose and create their journey to wherever it is they want to go. Check us out at jasonfrizzell.com, Facebook, or on Instagram.
Jason loves hearing from anyone who thinks it would be cool to connect, to be coached, or to be a guest on our show. Email him at podcast@jasonfrizzell.com or DM him on Facebook and Instagram. And now, back to some more amazing conversation on talking to cool people.
Love it.
All right, Laura, we are back. So, when you and I are prepping for this, and I was reviewing, we don't know each other until now, and I was reviewing like what you're up. We do now, yeah. We have a lot in common. We would probably not work well. We might work well together. Maybe we'll see. I don't know. Yeah. But I was looking at some of the things, and there's a lot of things that you have done or you do that are really intriguing, and you've hinted at a few of them. What I'd like to go to next, because you just mentioned it, is that idea of reassessing your expectations as a mom, but for dads too.
Yeah,
as a parent.
Absolutely.
And so your kids are 7 and 3. Mm-hmm. My wife and I, we were without a child for the first 6 years of our marriage. We live in New York City. So we were gung-ho, career, yep. Gung-ho. And then we had our daughter 7 years ago, and we had our son 3 years ago. And we've had to go through this process. And as we talked about, our personalities are hard driving, achievers, etc. That's been a challenge for us. So I'm curious to hear I know what my wife has told me about that. What's been your experience as a mother around that? And then how's it affected your family?
Yeah. I think, and I've said this in other podcasts before, but I think one of the things that was most surprising to me, and I'm telling you, I'm one that also does not like to be unprepared. So I read every book that they tell you to read about being a mom. I'm getting my kid to sleep, the day that he comes home from the hospital, like all those things, this plan.
And I know the next thing is you're going to say, it all works perfectly. You're like, and it all works perfectly.
Right. Never does. So, but I will say that children add an element to your life that is so beyond your control. And so as an A-type, control loving kind of gal, up until the point, and I will say I married especially for a Southerner, I married at 31, which is very late, not in New York necessarily, but here it is. All my friends were, I was one of the last of my friends to get married. I had my first son at 34, pretty old. So I had lived 34 years pretty much able to kind of make stuff happen. And, and honestly, like stay true to every commitment I had made. I really found that I put a lot of stock and weight and pride, to be completely honest, in being the girl that just gets stuff done, getting the girl that you can count on me. And so, 6 months into motherhood, I am driving, and this is a big part of kind of like what led me into entrepreneurship, but I'm driving 17 to 20 hours a week in the car with a 6-week-old. Wow. He's not in the car. He's not in the car with me. I'm driving to work, for work reasons.
Yeah, absolutely.
And absolutely just falling apart, I can't get to anywhere on time. I can't, I feel like garbage, just all of those things. That was just the start of it. And then after lots of conversations with my husband and lots of self-realization, I did start the business just after COVID, and was actually June of 2021, but really felt like it was my opportunity to do this. And I also had still managed to, for example, keep 3 meals a week, on the table as me preparing them. And then it may have been tacos, but I was still hanging on to the things and really feeling like I'm doing this mom thing and working mom. And I don't know if I felt like I was having to prove it to someone else, but I really was more putting the pressure on myself. My mom was a stay-at-home mom. My mom was a very hard worker in the home. So I will say the work ethic, she had no less job responsibility. Hers just happened to be inside our home. So I saw her working hard inside the home. I saw my dad as an attorney working hard outside the home. But I had even something as silly, again, as putting 3 meals on the table a week, I was doing it. I was going to, and then I got to the place where we have baseball on Tuesdays, then this on Wednesday, and you actually physically can't. So,
my guess is my guess is you were going to do that at the complete detriment to your own mental and physical and emotional health. Yeah, kill yourself. Yeah. Like it's not even optional. Not even optional not to do it.
No, we're doing it. And so then what happens is you actually have a breakdown. So here I am in the office of my therapist, beating myself up over it. And she asked me, I've got a question for you. She said, is your life the same? Your day to day, does it look the same as it did 6 years ago? And I'm like, not at all. And she said, then why do you have the same expectations of yourself that you had 6 years ago? And it was like,
the light bulb moment. The therapeutic light bulb moment. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah. And then I go, TMI, but then the next day I have an OBGYN appointment, my annual appointment, and I tell her this, and I'm trying to up my meds because I'm putting so much pressure on myself that it's causing me anxiety. And she's a physician with 3 children, right? She's a doctor. Okay. Yeah. And so that day she gave me the name of a couple of places where you can go pick up a hot casserole, like a hot meal that's home cooked, but it's not, McDonald's.
But you're not cooking it.
But you're not cooking it. And she was like, I'm going to tell you something right now. My 3 kids do not care that I don't cook this. And so that afternoon, I'll never forget it. That afternoon at like 4 p.m. or something, I got a text message from my doctor with a picture of her and her casserole picking it up that day. So it was almost like solidarity. But yeah, I think that it was affecting my health. I was not prioritizing myself. I was hustling so hard to make it happen. And at the same time, like not only does that not make me the best mom, but right now, and at the time it wasn't 17, but I have 17 women that work for me. And none of them yet have families. A lot of them are young or have chosen a different path, but and I will say I got some stepmoms. So there is that, but I just hired Lauren. She's got kids, 2 kids. So I take that back. She's just hired in the last 30 days. So got to get my head around that. And Sarah on my team's got children, but some of them aren't moms yet. And what am I teaching them about the ability to let go of things that aren't top of priority and prioritizing your family? If I am, coming in and trying to pretend to be super mom and not being vulnerable enough to say, look, this is hard and I'm not cooking anymore in 2024 or whatever, So I think that I can't remember what your original question was, but I think that I've just learned a lot about the expectations, not only I have for myself, but I also have for my husband, putting that same amount of pressure. We tend to do that in marriages, putting the same amount of pressure on them that we put on ourselves. So really working through that as an entrepreneur and a mom.
Thanks, Laura. I love that. I love, thanks for your vulnerability. By the way, this show, there's no such thing as TMI. I've had people talk about.
Good.
No such thing as TMI. Then people go, hey, can I swear? I'm like, you do you, girl. Like whatever you want to bring. Yeah. Whatever you want to bring. Love it. There's something that you said there. This is such a good example of intellectually, you already knew all of those things.
Right.
This is such a good example as people. If you said to somebody intellectually, hey, Laura, there's a person who's a new mom. She's also an entrepreneur. And she's tried to do all those. You go, that's crazy. That's not going to work out for them. But and I think all of us at some point, and for some of us, speaking now just for myself, even now, intellectually, we know all these things. And this is why people go, well, why do you have a therapist? Or why do you have a coach? Or why do you have a spiritual counselor? Or go see the pastor? And the answer is because it's not intellectual. That was not an intellectual thing. You were attempting to meet an emotional need or a sense of responsibility or something that meant something about you and interpreted, and your therapist would tell you this, I'm sure, you somehow attached a value to doing it all and doing it all well, likely from your childhood, because that's what we do, we bring that. And the result is that you end up not serving anybody, including your kids, including your husband, including your team, and most of all yourself.
Right. And it was true. I watched a mom that was a homemaker. So I watched a mom who did it all at home. That's who I was around. So the pressure that I probably put on myself is because she was able to accomplish so much in the home. But she wasn't working until later. So I think that's part of it. And then I saw a dad who was kicking ass as an attorney, and a judge later on. And so I think that this, our generation that's having kids now, it's just a whole nother world of pressure and responsibility. And if you aren't able to compartmentalize it in a healthy way, it can really affect your health, which is the most important thing to be able to be a good mom and a good boss.
Yeah. So now let's talk about your partnership with your husband. My guess is there's been, as you had what you just told us about, that has a tremendous ripple effect in the family.
Yeah. Yeah.
Probably had some hard conversations, is my guess.
Yeah, we have. And
so what's been the, so the next kind of like the lead in here is what have you learned with your husband as a working professional about how you can make this all work, be an entrepreneur? And this is the same dynamic we have in my family. Mm-hmm. The way we make it work, and I'll just be totally out with it, we have a full-time nanny. She doesn't live with us, but she comes 9 to 5:30. Our life doesn't work without her. We can't do it.
But good for you for saying that, because you're not trying to pretend that you're doing it without one. Yeah. Yeah.
No. Well, I'll be totally honest with you here. My wife and I did it with our son. Our son was born in October of 2020. And at the time we had a 4-year-old in 2020 who was in preschool and went from preschool 3 days a week going into a classroom, just sitting on our laps on Zoom. And it was miserable. It was miserable. Yep. Miserable.
For and everybody. They hate it too. The kids hate it too.
I remember our daughter's like, Daddy, I don't want to do this. And I'm like, I so don't want you to have to do this either, but none of us really have a choice here. We don't have a choice, yeah. Don't have a choice. So Laura, what have been some of the things that you and your husband have had to work through, maybe with your 7-year-old too, as they get kids, as they do? What are some things that you've done or that you would suggest that have worked well for you all as you move into this? Because this is you worked for companies before, and then entrepreneurial is a different, as you've learned, it's not for the faint of heart. So I'm curious to hear some of the wisdom that you and your husband have gotten from this, or lessons maybe not quite learned yet.
Yeah, I can teach you what not to do. Now, I will say, before I took this step, he's in ministry, obviously. Mm-hmm. So, both, I mean, the whole practical income conversation is a big part of it, obviously. And before I took this leap, well, first of all, without having him as all he would have had to say is, I don't think this is a good idea. And my life would look totally different right now, because. And
you would have said, okay. Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't have done this without his and not just support, not just maybe we can do it, but he was overwhelmingly supportive, which I think gave me that boost of confidence to do it. But I will certainly say, I don't know that he knew at the time how much it was going to affect his life. We never really do.
I'm sorry, Laura. I have to say, you and I literally have the same path and the same life. When I started my business almost 5 years ago, hey, I think I'm going to do this thing. Okay. And then about 2 years, and she's like, this is not what I was expecting.
Yeah.
You told me you're going to have more freedom.
You signed up for it. Yeah. Well, and I feel like it, for me, I'm I'm actually on a path and plan to do that. But the first couple of years, it's just not realistic. But no. Anyway, so when we first talked, he was all in, which again was a huge part of what was his blessing, was a huge part of it. But also, okay, we had just been through a season. And I will say this is important to me. His job had been super demanding there for a period of time. For a church where he was wearing a lot of hats, doing a lot of things. Of course, in ministry and church work, it's not 8 to 5 Monday through Friday job. It's a evenings, mostly, to be honest, evenings and weekends.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So lots of commitment, which again was required of both of us. So we had been in a season where, it's that give and take. I feel like I was giving more in the home. He was doing more work related. And then when this, started really thinking about taking this path, we both sat down and it was okay, here's what this might look like. This might look like, you picking up the kids every day, or this might look like you preparing a couple of meals of the week, or this might, and at the time, again, type A, had been, setting the kids' clothes out every day, packing their lunches every day. I was going to be the one determining what they wore and what they ate. And when you're an entrepreneur with kids, when you're a female entrepreneur with kids, you're not in charge of that anymore. I mean, maybe some people do it still, but now what they wear to school has gone to the absolute bottom of my priority list.
Totally.
So we talked about what it would look like. He was super supportive, but yeah, we've had, I will say in almost 3 years, there have probably been 2 times where I'm was this a good idea? It just has gotten really hard. It's gotten hard more than 2 times, but it's gotten really hard to the extent of, man, an 8 to 5 would be so much easier. And to be quite honest, I'm not paying myself $1 more than I was paying myself in my last job.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, because you're growing a business.
I'm hoping it's going to come, but I got a lot of people I got to pay before I pay myself.
That's right.
And so, I don't know how well you know this. I'm sure you do as an entrepreneur, but when, cash flow is tight, the CEO's, the owner is the last person to get
Absolutely. Paid. Oh, yeah.
So those are the types of things that, when he committed to this, he also committed to support me in all that. And so having, the hard times, particularly with financial type decisions, the investment that we made in the business, and most of all, more importantly than the financial is the time. And I am pretty much, and my team is like, your calendar stresses me out. I do have an assistant that's color coded it, and I'm working toward just having green and orange on my calendar. But right now it's a whole lot of yellow and a whole lot of something else. But it's the fact that pretty much throughout the day, I'm no help whatsoever to our family. I had a couple of weeks ago, I did have an opportunity. It's hunting season here in Mississippi. So this is like his thing, and I'm here for it and very proud to support it. And so it does, a couple of days, he's asked if I could pick up our 7-year-old from school so that he could go for an afternoon hunt. And I picked up my son a couple of days ago, and about 3 days later at bedtime, he goes, "Mom, remember how you picked me up from school that day?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "How did you do that?" And I just went, I just broke down.
Oh, yeah.
And I mean, the truth is, I just canceled my calls and made him a priority that day. Could I do that other days? But that type of thing, is just really important. And we're actually going to have a date night the week after Christmas. We both have birthdays the week after Christmas. My husband and I do.
Nice.
We've got a date night planned where we're going to bring our list of what next year would look like. And I said to him, if you want next year to look like less pickup from school, put it on the list. If you need more freedom, because I will say, like, those kids are tough. And if you I'm only with them like 2.5 hours a day, and I'm like, I'm done. We're only together between 5 and 8 p.m. and they're exhausting. So anyway, we're making our list for each other. So this would probably be
it's a great practice
for entrepreneurs. Make a list for each other. And I do this in the business, but I fail to do it in my marriage as much as I should. But just put your wish list, on there and bring it to each other and figure out how you can make it work. And maybe it's just that hey, I really want to go to the gym 5 days a week. How can you help me make that happen? So that's what we're in right now. But I think it is so much give and take, and it's so much sacrifice first, and really having to, in this season, think of the other, first, and not so that, not that we don't get what we want, but figuring out, it is all about compromise and making sure that he doesn't feel like, this is all about me right now. And some days it is, and some days it's not. But I think just working together is how we made it work. So,
Laura, that's such a good pro tip.
Kind of long-winded, but it's what it is.
No, that's such a great pro tip. I love what would you need? It's almost like the prompt is like, what would you like more, and what would you like more of in the next year, and what would you like less of? Mm-hmm. And that's the way I interpreted that prompt. I think that's so powerful because it's so easy to just get in the routine of doing, especially my experience and my wife's experience is she works for corporate, but she has a sales job, right? So it's so easy to get wrapped up in your own stuff. Mm-hmm. And both of us, she runs a big team just like you do. And I work for myself, and I'm doing this sort of work all day long. I'm talking to people pretty much 8 to 9 hours a day. I'm the same way. There's not really anything I can do to help. When I've got a client paying me, just like you, hey, we want to talk to Laura. She's the CEO of the company. You can't really be like, sorry, you got to go and pick up the kids. You can.
You can, but I try not to very often because time is money these days. So
and you probably also learned the biggest fallacy of entrepreneurship is oh, you'll have more time freedom. I'm like, nope.
No, you don't. Yeah.
Not at all. Yeah.
I think I'm getting there. I will say, I'm got a plan in place to get there, but I've had to make some tremendous, again, I'm not paying myself any more than I am because I'm trying to put people in place to get the business to a place where I can, have more flexibility. So,
well, yeah, Laura, that's the other thing I was going to say, just to call it out. And this is what I want to talk about next is the team you've built. It's quite unique and amazing.
Different, yeah.
It's different and quite unique. But Laura, also, let's just call out what you're doing. You're making yourself less important as you hire good people. At some point, you go, you actually become Oh yeah, you become like the figurehead. You're like the person that if the client's either really happy or really pissed, or you get to go out and be like a personal brand, and then you're like, I'm not doing any of the tactical stuff anymore.
No, there was actually a very I will never forget it, significant moment when I first thought about the name for the business. It's called the Business Growers. But I had a lot of friends who had started agencies or their own firms and used their last name as the name of the business. And I was like, I know I don't want to do that. Because I had made a decision early on. I don't want to be the name tied to the business. I want to get to a place where it's about what the value the team brings, not me. Have the hard conversations. Yeah, there's got to be somebody for that.
Yeah, you want to get away from where's Laura? We want to talk to Laura. We're paying big bucks. Where's Laura? Right. So let's talk about let's talk about your team. What's unique about it? And I'd love to hear your thought process as you've grown the team, because it seems to me you've grown pretty quickly. Yeah. If you just started this a few years ago. So let's talk about your team. What do you want us to know about that?
Yeah. So we have 17 team members in 2.5 years. So very accelerated. And that has been, I will say, like the timing on when to hire. We've always known who to hire. I feel like that's kind of been something that's been a little bit easier for us, knowing exactly who we need and what, like we already have a plan for who we want to hire next year. That's already planned out. Now that might change, but we've got a good idea of the priorities. I will say, and we talked about this a little earlier before we got started, but all of the members on my team are women. I have I will say I will certainly hire a dude. I've interviewed guys and certainly not opposed to it. I think it would take a really strong one to get in the mix here with 17 of us. But someone
I would have to say,
take a special guy. Though, I will say I have a former coworker who can't believe that we don't have drama. And we don't. And you can ask anyone on my team. I don't have a very high tolerance for drama. Yeah. Mainly, and I will say most of our team members, all of our team members are very, sharp and great mindset and understand, like, nobody has time for that. So we have 17 women and no drama. So
there's no reality show coming. No reality show being filmed with Business Growers.
None of that. We're actually pretty boring. But we are, we have a lot of fun. And I will say that my heart is, have always been a woman in tech. The first job I ever had, I was babysitting for the CEO of a company that put a cellular embedded module inside of an electric meter. Mm-hmm. Happening in little Jackson, Mississippi. I learned a lot from him. He's still a great mentor of mine. He had built a business that actually had been based in Canada. He was raising a family in Jackson. They were recruiting him as CEO of the business. And he was like, look, my family's in Jackson, Mississippi. So they moved the headquarters of the company to Jackson, Mississippi. So he grew and sold a $100 million tech company in Jackson, Mississippi, which has a lot of really great tech success stories, but it's just it's not Silicon Valley, and it's not, I think Austin and Denver are doing great things in the tech realm, but it is, one of America's best kept secrets. I'll just say that. So we,
good cost of living too, compared to Austin, San Francisco, New York, and Denver.
Yeah. And honestly, that's how I've been able to hire 17. And I will say, like, we've got talent obviously outside of Mississippi, but we, one of the things that's always been cool to me is that I've always worked with mostly men, in tech and engineering type roles. And I have always felt like there was a seat for me at the table. Mm-hmm. Every supervisor I have, everyone that I've worked with, I have always felt like my voice was important. And that is something I want to take with me always. So when I started the business, I was like, wouldn't it be really cool if, not exclusively women, that's where we are now, but if we had just a lot of really amazing female tech powerhouses right here in Jackson, Mississippi, that are able to work. Again, a lot of our clients are tech companies, B2B tech companies. So a lot of our clients, are, men, the CEOs of these tech companies, but we're able to work with them. I think women are great communicators. I think women are really detail oriented. So that's something that's very important in this type of business that I'm running. And I think that it's just a very complementary skill set to the clients that we serve, complementary characteristics to the clients that we serve. So it's just worked out really well. And it makes me happy because I've got, like I said I didn't have team members with kids. And that was like 6 months ago, and we're growing so fast now. I do have women with kids here, but but I also want to be a place, one of our core values is balance. I want to be a place we say you get your hair done, you get your work done. One of my most popular LinkedIn posts that I've ever done, that I've had, that I wouldn't say viral, but semi-viral, was a picture of me in a chair at the hairdresser. I took a picture because I'm on my laptop and I've got two girls like fixing my hair, in the chair. But I was on a conference call on Monday of this week in the salon chair with foil.
I love that. Why not?
And I'm like, don't ever be afraid. I tell my team, do not be afraid to put that carpool pickup on your calendar. Don't ever be afraid to put, whatever on your calendar, throw it on the calendar and make up the time. There's always room for flexibility. And so I want to build a business that is family and mom friendly. And so I'm blessed and thankful I get to do that.
Amazing. That's so cool. Yeah.
But the world is not always family friendly sometimes. So I think it's
absolutely not.
To make it.
Absolutely not. Well, you also know, as a good leader, that they're just going to end up resenting either you or the company, and they're going to do less work.
Right.
And the kind of work that you all do, there are times when it is crunch time.
Yeah.
And the expectation is you're working, hopefully not too many weekends, but working at night sometimes, like client deliverables and those things. Totally. And there's other.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so Laura, let's talk now about hiring.
Yeah.
Are you involved in all the hiring decisions still?
The last interview.
So everybody who you bring on talks to you. Yep.
Yeah, talks to me last. But I will say, other than that, I don't do any. Now, sometimes they'll ask me, hey, can you talk to the last two candidates before they hire?
Sure.
But my VP of Ops, Vicky, and I, we decide who needs to be hired and in what order. And then we decide budget for that. And then she does the rest. And I do talk to everyone. And mainly what my conversation is a core values conversation. I ask the people who interview here some questions that will allow me to know whether or not they're going to fit our core values.
Yeah, perfect. I always love to ask people that are hiring and growing their philosophy around hiring. I always like to start with this question. What's just a no-go from the beginning for you or your team in an interview? And this is they've already passed kind of the technical. Yeah, we need them to do this thing. Abilities test. What's just like an absolute no-go in an interview process for you or your team?
I do ask questions. We have 4 core values. So trust, balance, growth, and solutions focused. All of them are equally important. I ask questions around all of them. I think that one thing that trust is the most important. So I will say the questions that I ask, they're kind of trick questions, but they're really specific about having we not only have high trust value internally, but also with our clients. But that also means that if our clients don't trust us, then they know when to wave the red flag. We have red zone, red, orange, and green with all of our clients we're monitoring on a basis.
From a client health perspective.
Client health perspective. But then also, like, you can get in the red zone list if you treat one of my team members like a jerk. Like if you're a jerk.
Sure.
So that gets you in the red zone quickly. So I have questions particularly around trust, making sure that they understand when to throw up the flag. Hey, this is not an environment where the client trusts us. We need to make a decision here. But for me, particularly in this season, this might change, but solutions focused, because really we're moving so fast that no one here has time or energy to be a problem to be dumped on them and then the other team member walk away. So I tell my team members, I don't know if you're familiar with the 1-3-1, like, you come to me with the problem, you immediately give me 3 solutions that you've already thought of and worked out in your head. We will together decide on a solution. If that doesn't work, we'll move to the next one. But I don't want anyone to come with me and just say, hey, I have a problem, and then just leave it there. I don't really work that way. As you know, I can't, it's exhausting. So that for me right now is the most important. So asking questions around their ability to find a solution every time they bring a problem as well. And I will say that is definitely it's a hard no. And it's something that you would be surprised, but there are definitely personality types where people, and I have certainly had a moment on a call where I'm like, this is not the right person, because I could tell that they are certainly more of I just want to sit and talk about problems, not bring solutions. And we don't have that. So.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. Thanks for sharing that. If we go back to Clifton's strengths, one of the Clifton's 34 on that list is restorative. And it's the problem solving It's the problem solving strength, and it is a powerful one. But the downside of that strength, just like their downside to all of them, is it feels critical. Like people are being critical all the time, or always looking for like the little things to poke at.
Yeah.
When potentially, and my experience in business is you just, especially with what you're doing, and also sounds like the clients you serve, you just got to move forward, and it's not going to be perfect because we're not AT&T or an airline, or not that any of those companies are perfect, but also we're not like saving people's lives with this tech 99.9% of the time.
Right. Nothing is that critical. Figure it out on your own. And my team knows. You come to me and say I messed up 10 times out of 10. I'm like, great. Let's talk about it. You know, like I'm not afraid of a mistake. Actually, my team, we actually just rolled out a webinar invitation to like 600 people email, and one of our links was broken. Like, click here to register. It didn't work. And my team member, like, I'm on a call. She's panicking. She's coming there. I'm like, figure it out. It's fine. Like, nobody's dying. No, you know, everything's fine. So I would much rather, I welcome mistakes. Readily.
You're like, we are so good at everything, and at the same time we make basic mistakes, just like all the rest of you do
all the time. Yes,
all the time, because we're a bunch of good humans. Well, I want to wrap with today and talk a little bit about what you mentioned, that you're going into the next phase of the business where you're actually niching down.
Hard for an entrepreneur.
Hard. Isn't it so easy to want to be all things to all people? Be like, we can do that, and we can do that, and we can do that, and we can do that. So I'd love to hear a little bit about your process.
I've been doing that for several years. I've been doing that. I did that when I first started the business. For about 6 months, I would take anybody who would pay me, I would take it. And I would honestly probably let them name their price. Like, it's fine. Whatever.
Totally.
Here's that sounds great. And that's what you do. That's how you start a business. So after about 6 months, I looked at my numbers and I looked at a couple of things. What's the most profitable? Obviously.
Mm-hmm.
What is the most fun for me?
Yeah.
What do I enjoy? And then where do I feel like I'm making the most impact? And I vividly remember being in the office near Colorado Springs with the CEO, tech CEO, and I walked him through some new messaging for his brand. And it was like he couldn't take it. His head was like banging. Like, he realized that everything he had been saying for like 7 years was wrong. And the reason, like, basically, like, everything that he had, and I think that, I don't know if you're familiar with the book Story Brand by Donald Miller, but
of course, yes.
So speaking, everything that he had been doing from a messaging standpoint had been speaking at a technical level that was far too complex for his customers to even, could you have like seconds, right? So we talked through all of that, and I said, that's impact. Like, that's when you've got a CEO like banging his head on a desk because he's realized that he's missed the mark, but we're so glad that we're able to turn the ship. Those are the moments I remember, and I feel so grateful that I'm able to make that type of impact, and particularly in tech, because a lot of times we have those engineers that, and God bless them, but that make up the messaging and create the graphics and have it way too complicated. So after that, I turned the ship and we started focusing on selling to B2B tech companies.
Oh, you were just B2B before, B2B marketing.
We were just anything. For 6 months. Then we went to B2B tech.
Yeah.
And that's up until this point. So end of 2023, most of my experience in my career is with telecommunications companies, IT companies, managed services providers. It's not sexy. It's not flashy, but they need a lot of help. And we have the expertise and the team. And I know that if my team is going to get to a place where we are all experts, because the hardest thing is, like, I think about Anna on my team. She's got a beverage distributor, an OBGYN clinic. She's got an IT company. She's got something else. And so it's really hard to expect Anna, who's as sharp as a tack, but to expect her to be an expert in all of those things.
How could you be?
And you can't be. And so to do the best work for our clients and to also train and grow a team of experts who are confident in what they're doing, it really does require selecting a niche. I've had a lot of other agencies that have just affirmed this through, I've got access to a group of a lot of really sharp agency owners that say it's the way to go. So in 2024, we are formally, targeting our efforts towards finding, managed services providers and IT companies that are more than 5 million in revenue, that have, 50 or so employees, that don't need or can't afford a full in-house marketing team, but need a team of experts that act like one. So that's what we're doing this year.
There you go.
So I'll let you know. Call me in December of next year and let me know. I'll let you know if it works. But I really think
you'll be like, hey, Jason, back in the podcast. You're like, hey, we're back to talk about. Laura's like, a year from now, we'll be back on it. You'd be like, we're going to talk about how niching doesn't always work, or it always does work. No,
I really feel good. I feel like it will. I really believe it will. And again, going back to like, it's really with the heart of like serving our clients better and building a team of experts. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you can train those on your team who aren't naturally, that's not their thing. Give them you're speaking to a fellow telecommunications employee. So hand them the catalog of all the technical terms and
what's
all
awesome
the crazy stuff that's happened.
I can get my clients to help train my team. I've actually already scheduled a client for February who's going to come in and talk to us about what he does every day as the VP of technical operations at a managed services provider. So it's a great opportunity to help my team learn more, which is awesome.
Just tell them to stay awake. That's what I would say.
Love it.
You're like, here's the 2,600 acronyms that we use when we talk about wireline telecommunications. Yeah. I spent 11 years in wireless telecommunications.
Did you? Nice.
I did.
Nice.
A lot of acronyms there. But Laura, that's really good. Well, I want to thank you for one, being a great guest today, but two, like making a difference and being like I call it like not being shy about what you're doing in the business, but also being purpose driven in it as well.
Yeah.
One of my good friends, he has this pet peeve about like personal brands. And I think we're all personal brands, right? If we're all running our business, people want to hear from Laura, most likely because you're the CEO. Mm-hmm. There's this kind of this thing in marketing you see with personal brands, but also brands like what you do, where it's either so darn authentic and I don't really care to know like all the details, or this aspirational thing where people are like renting mansions or they're renting cars. And just to be saying like, hey, we're looking to grow a business. It's so played out. I think both of those are so played out. So I really appreciate but you're coming on, you're speaking about the challenges in your marriage, talking about the challenges as a mom, doing good work and like how to have it all. So I just want to thank you for coming on today and having the convo.
I appreciate what you're doing as a podcast host and getting folks on to tell their story. Because, it's not every day that I even think about reflecting on all of this. So I'm really glad to have things like this podcast to kind of come back to and know that, hey, this was a nugget in season and time when I'm 5 or 10 years down the road to remember where I've come from.
Remember where you come from. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I have an offer. So I have an offer for you. First one, they're both serious because I'm a jokester. Okay. One, love to have you back on sometime next year. Just check in how everything's going. Number two, I would love to interview the first male you hire and see if your sense is quite as good. I spent time leading a coach training program, and it was me and 10 women. And I will tell you, I'm the father of a daughter and been married for quite a while. I learned a lot about women that I never knew before, and it wasn't all great.
Yep. We are not perfect. Contrary to what you might think, we are not perfect. So
hold on a minute, Laura. We're still recording. Can you say that for me to play back my way? We are not perfect. No, but
I love it.
Man, I can only imagine the first male who walks in. He's like, "Where's my team?" And you're like, I mean, that could be a really cool thing for a guy, but it's
going to be and we've had some male contractors, I will say, but oddly enough, they haven't lasted very long. So you might want to check. I actually did call. I have a hire that I'm looking for, a particular big hire for this year that I called a male that I graduated college with that is in the area that knows marketing. And I told him, I said, I will offer the job to you if you want it. But just so you know, we got 17 women working for him. And he was like, yeah, I'm not interested.
Yeah. I'm picturing you go, we're totally professional. We're all business. We have no drama here. And we interview the guy. He's like, holy crap.
There's so much drama.
Holy crap. There's so much drama. There's so much drama. Not that guys don't bring their own version of drama, but women.
That's right.
You know,
that's right.
That's good. Well, Laura, happy holidays to you and the family. Looks like you have a tree behind you. Merry Christmas.
You too. Yes.
Enjoy
Thank
it.
You so much.
We'll see you.
Thank you.
We'll have you again next year. Thanks, Laura.
Thanks. Bye. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Talking to Cool People with Jason Frizzell. If you enjoyed today's episode, please tell your friends. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook, and give us a shout out, or take a moment to leave a review on iTunes. If something from today's episode piqued your interest and you'd like to connect, email us at podcast@jasonfrizzell.com. We love hearing from our listeners because you're cool people too.